If you play FPS games, you've got to check out the Skullcandy Crusher PLYR 720. It's fully open back with the widest soundstage that I've heard on any device. And if you're a basshead like me, this is a must listen. It has a generally warm sound signature, but it's also got dedicated drivers just for the bass. The PLYR 720 can be used wired or wirelessly. Wired can be done with the included USB-C cable. This requires it to be powered on and everything functions normally. You can also use the included 3.5mm cable. This works powered on or off, but when off, only the headphone audio and mic work. No custom EQs or Crusher bass or anything else. The mic mute still works though, and so does the mic mute light. Important to know, when you power the device on or off when wired, there's this very loud pop, and it actually even vibrates the headset itself. So do be aware of that. I'd take it off before you plug it in or out. This has simultaneous 2.4 gigahertz and Bluetooth wireless. I got the Xbox version, which I recommend because when testing, it works on PS5 and PC as well. Just set the dongle to PC mode for systems that are not Xbox. The game chat mixer works on Xbox and PC, but not on PS5. It even works when using USB wired. It's just going to say PLYR 720 USB chat and PLYR 720 USB game. Skullcandy advertises a latency of 40 to 50 milliseconds, which is actually really high. If you're imagining 60 frames per second, every frame is about 16.6 milliseconds. So your audio could be around 4 frames delayed using that measurement. Odyssey says their Maxwell is about 18 milliseconds of true delay. Unfortunately, I don't have a really good way to test this, and that's one blind spot that I have with my gaming headset tests is I don't really do latency testing. The other problem is the wireless range is really weak. They say it gets up to about 30 feet, but in my experience, it's more like 12 before it cuts out. And then when you're in that range, it'll keep connecting and disconnecting, being like connected, disconnected, and it's very annoying. So range is not that great. The battery life on this thing is also not very good, and that's disappointing considering how heavy it is. I'll talk about that in the comfort and build quality section. They say this gets between 38 and 48 hours of battery life. Well, I drained the battery in less than 2 days with heavy use. I was playing about 12 hours a day, and the Crusher bass was almost always, it was between 0 and 20. I never really used it higher than that unless I was specifically trying to test something. The RGB lighting was on the entire time, so that could be a factor, but I would expect about 25 hours of real world use with this, unless maybe like there's a firmware update or something like that. This does have an auto sleep function, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and it'll just stay on for 8 hours. And it seems like it's kind of like got like a sensor for like a gyro sensor or something. If you put it down and then leave it, it might just turn off, and then once you pick it up, it'll immediately turn back on. And the way that you actually turn off, I'll talk about that in the controls actually. The controls are quite confusing, so I'm not actually going to go over all of them. Left ear cup on the outside, there's the mic mute button, and this activates that red light. Power on and off. You need to hold it for 2 seconds specifically. Too much longer and it will start pairing, not enough and it won't turn off. There's a joystick which doubles as a multi-function button. Up and down for the volume, which controls system volume, at least on Windows, and then left and right for the game chat volume mixing. You can hold the joystick button in to switch the left and right clicks to side tone volume instead. The side tone is very quiet, but since this headset is fully open back, you can pretty much just hear your voice anyway. Tapping the joystick button toggles between the EQ presets. You can only access one custom preset by using the joystick itself, and it'll toggle between the rest of them. It seems like only the last custom that you applied in either the phone or the PC app actually will save to the device itself to toggle between them. To access the rest of the custom presets, you'll need to select them in the app itself, either the phone app or the PC app. The right ear cup has this custom button, which doesn't have anything to do with the custom presets. Instead, holding it toggles THX audio on or off. It also controls the head tracking feature, which is a cute gimmick. Tapping it once plays and pauses media tracks. Outside of that, I haven't found a way to reverse or skip media. Then there's the Crusher bass slider, which controls the haptic vibration level. Talk about that in a little bit. Now, as usual for the headphone audio quality section, I'll be doing a combination of objective measurements that I took with my mini DSP ears, but also my subjective experience because I did play a lot with these and took these out a lot. So I've got a lot to say. This is definitely in my personal top 5 when it comes to gaming headset audio. It's not for everyone though, so I'm gonna need more time to decide if I want to put this in my full top 5 recommendations list. Just generally, this has 40mm dynamic drivers with a frequency range of 20 Hz to 20 kHz, paired with 25mm Crusher bass drivers, which are similar to the haptic vibrations in the PS5 controller, but they have a lot of nuance to them. It's not just a controller rattling like old Skullcandy headphones. So here's what I like. Number one is the soundstage. This is a fully open back, not just a few vents like the biodynamic MMX330 Pro, but closer to the drop PC38X. The whole outside is vented. For Black Ops 7, this was amazing. It really gave a sense of distance, which is the opposite of the A50X, which feels very closed in. I don't think either a wide or narrow soundstage is better or worse, personal preference, but having the bass have a powerful hit and then escape quickly without reverberating is what a lot of FPS players have been asking for with gaming headsets. And this thing has massive bass, but not just bass. There's great sound separation throughout the entire audio spectrum. Even when there are cluster grenades and score streaks popping off everywhere, I can still pinpoint gunshots directionally. Footstep audio is great, nice and thumpy without getting muffled by other sounds. However, I definitely would keep the crusher bass off for FPS games, because while it does give a little extra thump to the footsteps, it also gives a massive boost to explosions and other rumbles in a similar frequency range, which will completely overpower them. I've talked about that in an older video. For single player games and music, I love the crusher bass. At low levels, it's a deep, booming subwoofer style vibration that's not too distracting. Anything over 15%, and it starts to just become a humorous effect, but as a massive fan of bass, I enjoy these. And what's awesome is they're able to increase the bass of this device without changing the other frequencies. And that matches up with the frequency response measurements that I've had. So on to the objective measurement side. This is the left and right driver. This is with them averaged out, so it's just cleaner to look at. While the PLYR 720 is mostly balanced overall, the frequency response curve definitely is not smooth. There's prominent sub bass and bass all the way up to about 100 hertz. Then it falls off a cliff for some reason down to around like 350 before it starts to rise back. And I've reviewed several Skullcandy devices, not on this channel. And the Crusher Evo and Crusher ANC2, they also have that issue where they can't quite get that full spectrum of bass to be elevated. They kind of have like parts of it are up, and then there's like either peaks and then they drop off entirely, or it just like completely like will ignore certain areas of the bass. But the result is it does make the sound kind of disjointed. You get that powerful sub bass, like you get that proximity effect over here, but then some of the vocals at the same time, they sound thin. How do you get the proximity effect and thin vocals at the same time? It's when you have a curve that looks like this. Now, if we compare this to one of my favorite gaming headsets that I've been recommending a lot, this is the Astro A50X. This is way more balanced. And the A50X does sound warmer out the box. And the reason for that is just because you got the full range of that bass is still prominent, and then it doesn't have that dip in the lower mid range. Also, it's not as spiky in the treble. The treble is just a little bit lower in general. The PLYR 720 has a lot of seemingly random dips and spikes after 1K. Like I said, they gain that extra proximity effect here while they sound a little bit thin at the same time. And some of the treble, like the sibilance, can be strong, but it's not overpowering like biodynamic, nothing close. But overall, I'm a fan. You can EQ out whatever you don't like in this, and this is very responsive to equalization. And of course, this is what you get when you turn on various amounts of crusher bass. Everything over 400 stays pretty much exactly the same, but then you're gonna start to get some crazy elevation here. It doesn't go all the way to the full end of this bass over here, but you know, caps out around 150, and then when you put to 100%, it's just ridiculous. If you were interested in using the THX Special Audio, this is what it looks like. It does smooth that curve out a bit. I haven't really tested this enough because I couldn't tell when I had this on far, the THX Special on far or near, the curve was exactly the same. So I'm not really sure exactly what it's supposed to be doing. It definitely is a more subtle effect than the THX Special Audio in like Razer devices. So summary, this is amazing sound for FPS games and for immersion. Very wide sound stage. It's not on the level of the Astro A50X or Odyssey Maxwell for overall sound quality, but this is extremely fun to use. There's nothing like this on the market. Now the microphone, it's all right. There's a lot of post-processing going on here. And I later learned in the app, this is called Clear Voice Smart Mic, which eliminates a lot of background noise. Actually, I'll go ahead and demonstrate. I was playing with some friends. Here, let me talk while I'm doing this keyboard type, but then I'll stop for a little bit. I was playing with some friends, some Tekken, and I have an arcade stick. It is quite loud, so it was able to cut the noise down from this quite a bit. So I can see it's still being picked up, but not nearly as loud as my voice. So it does a great job with that. Ultimately, it does sound very compressed, but they put a lot of effort into getting rid of the background noise and focusing on that. This mic is detachable, but there are no integrated mics. So once you take this off and using it on the go, like I said, I don't really think it's that great on the go. Also, you can bend this a tiny bit. I don't really like the microphone placement that much because you try to move it up and in, it'll just kind of go back to its original position, move it down. It's always going to kind of go back here. The good thing about that position is that since your breath is always going to be going forward, you're never going to distort the microphone with plosives. The Crusher Player 720 uses the Skull HQ app on desktop and the Skullcandy app on phones. Originally, I want to say how well the apps were as far as being responsive and actually working when I connected this device, but lately they've been having issues where my device will be connected, but these just won't detect them. So I wouldn't completely rely on this. Anyway, these are the RGB settings that you get. So you can change the lighting. There's not really that many modes. There's solid and then there's breathing, and that's it. So change the voice prompts and stuff like that. You get the equalizer. Now you can't control the one that's RPG or FPS or music, but when you go to the customs, you get the multiple ones that you can adjust. So custom one, this is why I had just kind of like bumping up some of the bass and just seeing what it does. And then this is just me, testing things. I don't have a specific one that I really wanted. There's 10 band EQ and this goes plus or minus 12 dB. So you can get the sound to be exactly how you want. This is very responsive to equalization. Again, there's that THX spatial audio. This is extrasensory perception, which it'll give you hearing tests. And based on that test, it will raise certain frequencies to kind of bring back what you can't hear as well. And then there's the game chat mixer. If you didn't want to do it with the joystick itself, side tone, and then the mic volume, all of those types of things. I'd give this a C plus or maybe a B minus in comfort. It's okay. Lately, I've been really big on headset weight. The Crusher Player 720 is 370 grams without the mic and 382 with it. So that by itself is too much for me to give it an A. There are other elements that I'm not big on, like the padding, which feels kind of like cloth, but it's not soft like a cotton shirt. This is supposed to be heat absorbing. I have to test this more in the summer, but it doesn't lock in heat like pleather, I will say that. It also does not trap in bass. So the fact that this has such great bass means they tune the drivers to be very warm to compensate for both the open back design and the ear pads. The rubber at the top wasn't too bad. It stops like pressure points. It just feels weird. The frame, it's adjustable. The top of the headband is metal, but everything else feels plastic, full swivel in and out. This is just way too heavy for me, especially considering that the battery life isn't really that good. So that's not what's taking up much of the weight. It's all right. Now for my verdict, I love the Skullcandy Crusher Player 720. Unparalleled bass, fully open back, and excellent sound separation. Top 5 gaming headset material, maybe I need some more time to think about that compared to some other devices. But if you're into the attributes that I just mentioned, then I definitely recommend this headset and I'll be using it a lot.